When steel walls couldn't contain love. The fluorescent lights of Riverside. Women's Correctional Facility flickered at exactly 10:47 p.m. every night, casting shadows that danced across cell block D like ghosts of forgotten dreams. Officer Maya Chen had memorized this timing during her 3 years of night shifts, just as she had memorized the sound of every door lock, every footstep echo, and most dangerously, the exact rhythm of inmate 47829's breathing when she pretended to be asleep. What Maya hadn't anticipated was how a woman serving 8 years for a crime born of desperation would become the only truth in a life she'd built on carefully constructed lies. Maya had joined the correction system with noble intentions, believing she could make a difference in broken lives. She wore her uniform like armor, kept her hair pulled back in a severe bun, and mastered the art of looking through people rather than at them. Her colleagues admired her professionalism. Her family praised her stable government job. Her ex-boyfriend from college still sent occasional texts hoping to rekindle what she'd quietly ended, never understanding that the problem wasn't him, specifically, but the fundamental impossibility of loving any man when her heart had always belonged elsewhere. Maya had buried that truth so deep she almost convinced herself it didn't exist. Until the day Samantha Rivera walked into her cell block wearing an orange jumpsuit and eyes that held entire universes of sorrow. Samantha had been a high school art teacher before everything fell apart. She'd taken the blame for her younger brother's drug possession, unable to watch him destroy his future when he had a full scholarship waiting. The system didn't care about sacrifice or sisterly love. It only cared about guilt, and Samantha had claimed it to save someone else. In prison, she moved through the days like a shadow, teaching other inmates to sketch with contraband pencils, finding beauty in a place designed to crush hope. She never caused trouble, never complained, and carried herself with a quiet dignity that made even the hardest guards soften their voices around her. Their first real conversation happened during a routine cell inspection. Maya had found a collection of drawings hidden under Samantha's mattress, delicate portraits of the other inmates that captured their humanity in ways the prison system never could. Protocol demanded she confiscate them as unauthorized materials. Instead, Maya found herself frozen, staring at a sketch of an elderly woman in the next cell, her face etched with wrinkles and wisdom, her eyes reflecting a lifetime of stories. The drawing made Maya's chest ache with its raw honesty, its refusal to see inmates as numbers and crimes. When she looked up, Samantha was watching her with an expression that seemed to see straight through every wall Maya had ever built around herself. Maya should have walked away. She should have confiscated the drawings, written a report, and maintained the professional distance that kept her safe. Instead, she heard herself whisper that the artwork was beautiful, that it deserved to exist, and that she would forget she'd seen it if Samantha kept it better hidden. The smile that crossed Samantha's face in that moment was like sunrise breaking through prison bars, and Maya felt something shift inside her chest, some long-locked door beginning to crack open. The small moments built into something neither of them could name. Maya began timing her rounds to check on Samantha's cell more frequently than necessary. She brought extra books from the prison library, always choosing ones she knew Samantha would love based on the novels she'd seen in her cell. Samantha started leaving small sketches tucked into returned books, drawings of birds in flight and open horizons and freedom rendered in stolen pencil lead. They never touched, never spoke beyond the necessary exchanges between guard and inmate, but entire conversations happened in glances and carefully chosen words that meant something different to anyone listening. 6 months into this dangerous dance, Maya volunteered for additional therapy session monitoring, a duty most guards avoided. It meant sitting outside the counseling room, theoretically giving inmates privacy while ensuring safety. In reality, it gave Maya 30 minutes twice a week where she and Samantha could be in the same space, separated by a doorway but connected by something electric that made the air feel charged. Samantha would sketch during her sessions, and sometimes she'd turn the notepad toward the door, showing Maya drawings of 2 hands almost touching, of walls with windows, of chains made of flowers. Maya would watch, her heart pounding so hard she was certain the entire prison could hear it, and feel herself falling into something that could destroy both their lives. The crisis came on a random Tuesday in October. Samantha's brother had been arrested again, this time with no one to take the fall for him. The news came through in a family phone call that left Samantha shattered. Her sacrifice rendered meaningless by circumstances beyond her control. Maya found her in her cell after lights out, crying silently into her pillow with a kind of broken desperation that made every rule and regulation feel meaningless in the face of human pain. Every shred of training told Maya to walk away, to call the mental health team, to maintain her professional boundaries. Instead, she did something unforgivable. She stepped into the cell and closed the door behind her. Maya sat on the edge of the narrow bed, maintaining inches of careful distance, and began to talk. She told Samantha about her own brother, who had died in a car accident when Maya was 19, how she'd spent years wondering if she could have prevented it somehow. She talked about the weight of trying to save people who didn't want to be saved, about the helplessness of loving someone and watching them self-destruct anyway. She spoke truth she'd never told anyone, her voice barely above a whisper in the darkness, and when Samantha's hand found hers in the space between them, Maya didn't pull away. They sat like that for 17 minutes, hands clasped, breathing synchronized, existing in a moment stolen from a world that would condemn them for it. Maya knew every second was being recorded by security cameras. She knew her career was probably ending in real time. She knew that by every measurable standard, what she was doing was wrong, an abuse of power and violation of professional ethics. But sitting there in the darkness, feeling Samantha's pulse through her palm, Maya had never felt more certain of anything. This connection, this understanding, this love that had grown in the impossible soil of a prison cell, was the first real thing she'd felt in years. The fallout was swift and brutal. The night supervisor had noticed Maya's extended absence and reviewed the camera footage. By morning, Maya was suspended pending investigation. The union representative explained that while she'd technically committed a violation by entering an inmate's cell alone and having physical contact, the fact that nothing else had occurred would likely save her job with appropriate discipline. Samantha was placed in temporary isolation for her own protection while they investigated whether she'd been coerced or taken advantage of. The system ground forward with its machinery of rules and procedures, never once considering that two human beings might have simply found each other in the darkness. During the 3 weeks of investigation, Maya existed in a state of suspended animation. She couldn't contact Samantha, couldn't explain or defend or even know if Samantha was okay. She gave her statements to investigators, carefully admitting only what the cameras had shown while refusing to characterize the nature of her feelings. She endured lectures about professional boundaries and the power dynamics between guards and inmates. She listened to her supervisor, a kind woman named Patricia, who'd worked corrections for 20 years, explain gently that this job required building walls around your heart because the alternative was devastation. But Maya had spent her entire life building walls around her heart. She'd hidden who she was from her family, her friends, herself. She'd pursued relationships she knew would never fulfill her because they were safe and expected. She'd chosen a career in cages, surrounded herself with locks and bars and rules, all in service of the same goal, keeping the truth contained. And somehow, impossibly, a woman in an orange jumpsuit with sad eyes and talented hands had reached through all those barriers and touched something real. The investigation concluded with a formal reprimand, mandatory retraining, and reassignment to the men's facility across town. Maya would keep her job but never work at Riverside again. Samantha received a note in her file but no additional punishment, the investigators concluding she hadn't initiated the contact. They were separated by bureaucracy and policy, their story reduced to incident report language that captured nothing of what had actually passed between them. If you've been moved by this story of two souls finding each other against impossible odds, if you believe in the power of genuine connection even in the darkest places, I want to ask you something from my heart. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to this channel. These stories matter because they remind us that love exists in unexpected places, that courage sometimes means breaking rules designed to keep us safe, but also keep us isolated. Your support helps these stories reach others who need to know they're not alone in their struggles to live authentically. Maya took the transfer and the reprimand. She completed her retraining and listened to lectures about maintaining Appropriate distance. She worked her new shifts at the men's facility, doing her job with the same professionalism she'd always shown. But she also did something she'd never had the courage to do before. She came out to her family slowly and carefully, watching their reactions range from confusion to acceptance. She started attending a support group for LGBTQ individuals in law enforcement, finding community among others who understood the particular challenge of being authentic while working in systems built on rigid structures. She began for the first time in her life to live without hiding. Samantha had 5 years left on her sentence, time that would pass in the slow, grinding way of institutional days. She continued her art, her drawings growing bolder and more hopeful. She wrote letters to her brother in his own prison, offering forgiveness and encouragement, refusing to let his choices steal her peace. She participated in every rehabilitation program offered, working toward the future that waited beyond the walls. And she kept one small sketch hidden in her cell, a drawing of 2 hands touching, palms pressed together in the darkness, a reminder that connection was possible, even in the most controlled environments. They couldn't write to each other. They couldn't visit or call or maintain any contact without jeopardizing what little future they each had. But on random Tuesday evenings, Maya would drive past Riverside on her way home from her new job, and she'd look up at the lit windows of Cell Block D, knowing Samantha was somewhere behind those walls, and Samantha would stand at her small window during the evening count, looking out at the darkening sky, thinking about a guard with gentle eyes who'd risked everything for 17 minutes of honest human connection. If this story touched your heart, I have one more request. Please leave a comment sharing a time when you found courage in an unexpected place, or when someone saw the real you when others only saw the surface. Your stories create community and remind us all that we're not alone. 3 years later, Maya received a letter forwarded through the prison education program. It was a sketch, professionally framed, showing 2 birds in flight against an open sky, their wings almost touching as they soared toward the horizon. In the corner, barely visible, were the initials SR and a date still 2 years in the future. Samantha's release date. There was no message, no explanation needed. It was an invitation, a promise, a declaration that some connections survive even in forced separation. Maya hung the sketch in her apartment where she saw it every morning. She continued building the authentic life she'd never allowed herself before. Dating openly, joining community organizations, becoming the person she'd always been afraid to be. But she also marked her calendar, counting down days toward a date when steel walls would finally open, when imposed distance would end, when 2 women who'd found truth in the darkest place could discover what their connection might become in the light. Love has no proper timing, recognizes no appropriate boundaries, follows no convenient path. Sometimes it emerges in the space between what's allowed and what's real, between professional duty and human truth, between the life we're supposed to live and the one we're brave enough to claim. Maya and Samantha's story didn't have a traditional happy ending, at least not yet. But it had something more valuable, the promise that authenticity, once claimed, cannot be unclaimed, and that connections forged in adversity carry a strength that comfortable relationships never know. The fluorescent lights of Cell Block D still flicker at 10:47 p.m. A new guard walks those rounds now, unaware of the history those halls contain. But somewhere in the darkness, 2 women count days toward the same distant morning, carrying hope like contraband through the ordinary hours, believing that love found in the most unlikely place might prove to be the most enduring kind of all.